Hi, I'm Evan Miller. I'm here to give you a New Year's message. It's January again. January is the traditional time for us to make promises we can't keep. It's when we join the health club and go on a diet, quit smoking, or learn new skills. If you've seen a few Januaries come and go, you know what I mean. And you probably expect to fail. But begin again anyway, because you're not alone. This time, begin again differently. One of the predictors of how happy we'll be in the future is how we respond to failure, loss, suffering. Our culture has taught us that if we don't succeed the first time, then just give up. We expect instant success in 3 easy steps. We expect large bank accounts, great careers, beauty, success, happiness, without failure or loss or hardship. In fact, we don't know how to lose, or how to fail, or how to endure suffering. But anyone who has won or succeeded or has a life full of joy would say that loss, failure, and suffering must happen first. A year ago this month, I was laid off from a company I had been employed with for 25 years. And I felt devastated. I didn't handle it well because I defined my whole life around employment with this company where I had led great successes. I lost a large pension due at age 55, so my retirement plan was gone. I felt bitter because so many people who had asked for my trust had betrayed me. And I blamed myself with a big list of woulda, coulda, and shoulda. For a period of several months, functioning each day was a major effort. I was a mess. So I studied failure and recovery in other people and in myself. I knew people who had gone through great failure, loss, and hardship, but emerged more joyful, even more fulfilled than before. But how could they do this? I studied the true story of a man named Job. Job was highly respected. He was a good man, and he was rich by his culture's standards. In one day, through no fault of his own, he lost everything. His children, all his possessions. Then he got a painful skin disease. Everything he worked for and lived for was gone. He sank into depression and he questioned God, obsessed with why this had happened. The turning point in the story came when Job submitted to God and prayed for his friends. This was significant because he had stopped demanding that God answer his questions and instead began listening for God's direction. He stopped living in a past filled with accomplishments and instead turned to a future filled with God's agenda. He stopped obsessing about himself and he began loving others. The second half of Job's life was even better than the first, and he had 10 children. Job learned the secret of emerging from loss. I wanted to learn more. Job began again with God. The funny thing is, I already knew this secret, but I'd forgotten. After graduating from college, getting married, moving back to Texas, and starting a new job, I began having terrible seizures. I lost most of the use of my right hand. I was diagnosed with a brain tumor and told that I may not have very long to live, maybe just a few months. I progressed through all the stages of dying, denial, anger, bargaining with God, and so on. And I started reading the Bible like never before. At first it was because I wanted to bargain with God, but a funny thing happened. I started loving God more. I began knowing His character. I longed to know Him even more. I started trusting Him with my life, not just on earth, but forever. And as they wheeled me into surgery that January in 1983, I prayed, Jesus, whether I live or die, I'm yours. I'll spoil the ending of the story now and tell you that I didn't die, but the details are for another time. The lesson is that I began again with God. That experience had a profound effect on me and on Karen. And instead of parting away our 20s, Karen and I served in our local church. But eventually, as the demands of raising children grew, I became more focused on career and money until they became the focus of my life. I did whatever my bosses at work asked of me. And when all that I had worked for was gone, I had a major crisis. My roadmap was gone. I was lost. I was confused. After the layoff, I asked God to help me begin again. Gradually, faith began to reemerge. And He's not done with me yet, but I'm now trying to walk each footstep that He leaves, following Him without demanding a roadmap in advance. I'm relearning how to live by faith. The Bible is surprisingly full of human failure. Let's look at a couple of stories from the Bible of people in nearly identical situations where one failed and never recovered, while another failed but began again. Lot was Abraham's nephew, and he lived in a wicked city named Sodom. Sodom was so wicked that even men were afraid to go out at night because they might be raped and murdered. Everyone in the city was evil. In fact, everyone in the neighboring city, named Gomorrah, was also evil. God had planned to destroy these wicked cities, but a man of God named Abraham prayed that God would spare Sodom. The story of the rescue of Lot, his wife and family from the destruction of Sodom is found in Genesis chapter 19. Two angels, disguised as men, came to visit Lot and his family. Lot invited them into his house. And after they finished dinner, men from the city surrounded the house and demanded to have sex with the two visitors. Lot refused, and the men were about to hurt him when the two angels struck the men outside blind. Let's pick up the story in verse 15. With the coming of dawn, the angels urged Lot, saying, "Hurry, take your wife and your two daughters, or you'll be swept away when the city is punished." When Lot hesitated, the men grasped his hand and the hands of his wife and his two daughters and led them safely out of the city, for the Lord was merciful to them. As soon as they had brought them out, one of them said, "Flee for your lives, don't look back, and don't stop anywhere in the plain. Flee to the mountains, or you'll be swept away." But Lot said to them, "No, my lords, please. Your servant has found favor in your eyes, and you have shown great kindness to me in sparing my life, but I can't flee to the mountains. This disaster will overtake me and I'll die. Look, here is a town near enough to run to, and it's small. Let me flee to it. Then my life will be spared." And God said to him, "Very well, I will grant this request too. I will not overthrow the town you speak of, but flee there quickly, because I cannot do anything until you reach it." And that's why the town was called Zoar. By the time Lot reached Zoar, the sun had risen over the land, and then the Lord rained down burning sulfur on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of the heavens. Thus He overthrew those cities and the entire plain, including all those living in the cities, and also the vegetation in the land. But Lot's wife looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. Now in this story, Lot and his family had to lose everything in order to be rescued. They had to begin again in a new place after fleeing from Sodom. But Lot and his wife both disobeyed God. The Lord commanded them, "Don't look back, and don't stop anywhere in the plain." Lot disobeyed. He actually said no. But he pleaded that they would let him go to a small town before reaching the mountains, because he was afraid that he couldn't make it all the way back to the mountains. Now Lot's wife disobeyed a different command. Silently she looked back and turned into salt. She didn't ask God anything. She made her own fateful decision without God. Lot and his wife were in identical circumstances, but it seems Lot was willing to begin again with God, and his wife wasn't. She not only disobeyed, but she seemed to want to return to that horrible city. Maybe she was only mourning the loss of her home, but it was still self-centered thinking. Lot faced the future with God, even while disobeying God's direct order, by asking for a change in destination. Lot's wife looked at the past without God. Our reaction to her fate is also key. We can sit in judgment of God for allowing her to die, or we can accept God's judgment and thank Him for saving some, and trust Him with our future. I'm a little like Lot, and a little like his wife. I tend to look back, and I also argue with God. But in His mercy, I'm still moving forward.